All right, I am here with Officer Bill Carroll, who was a part of a big event that happened 20 years ago, if you can believe it or not. We all remember the great comeback in 2004, but before that, there was an incident, one of the greatest games that people remember. Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, and then something happened during that game. Uh, our former Red Sox manager, now bench coach with the Yankees, charged Pedro Martinez, and we'll talk with Officer Carroll about that coming up in just a minute here. But Bill Carroll, I'm friends with his sons, Chris and Dan, and I will tell you this first, Mr. Carroll, that we didn't know it was you on television until after, and then the next day the newspaper came out and we saw you on the front cover with trying to get in the middle of Pedro and Zimmer, and we took it and put it on our fridge and had it on the fridge for years. So you were a legend in the household growing up for all those years. But can you take us back to the day before the game? You showed up. They put you on on the infield, and what was the vibe like at the stadium that day?
Well, the first two games of the series were played in New York, and the team split. But you could just tell, I mean, Red Sox, Yankees from the late 90s, whenever the both of them made the playoffs, they usually ended up meeting, and the Yankees always prevailed. The Yankees had really great teams in the late 90s. They won 3 World Series in a row. They were in 4 out of 5 years. And then 02, they weren't in the playoffs. But that particular day, and believe it or not, a lot of Yankee fans at the ballpark. You can see them before the game, because before the game starts, we're all out in front of the park, keeping an eye on things. And there was a lot of chatter going back and forth, trash talk and this and that, with the fans, not with the players. But and the players, all said the right things on TV and in the news and everything. But once the game started, you could really feel it was just tense. It was really tense. And it was a Saturday afternoon, kind of late afternoon game, 4 o'clock start, I think. I think it was on Fox. And now we're coming into the 4th inning. In the top of the 4th inning, and I can remember Pedro threw a pitch, and it hit Kareem Garcia in the back. And it was kind of close to his head. It was a fastball too, because earlier he had been throwing a lot of breaking pitches because Yankees love to hit fastballs. But anyway, this one came kind of close to hitting him on the squash. But anyway, it was Joe Torre come out, talk to the umpire and whatever. Both teams were warned about, the beanball situation. Don't let this escalate. So what happened is he goes to first base. I believe Jorge Posada was the next batter after Garcia. And Pedro ended up walking him on a full count, 3-2 count, but he didn't throw him any fastballs. It's one of the things I remember. No fastballs. He put him on, but eventually the Red Sox, they got the 3rd out, and now we're going into the bottom of the 4th inning.
Yep.
And Manny Ramirez is leading off for the Red Sox in the bottom of the 4th. And Roger's first pitch was a fastball, and it was right down the middle, but about head high to Manny's maybe eyes or his nose, but head high, but not near his head. He wasn't throwing at him. He was trying to blow one by him. And Manny being Manny, came out with the bat, stormed the mound, started a benches clearing, empty. Now, when we're in the dugout, we're supposed to come out of the dugout and just face the crowd. Face the crowd. The last thing Grady Little said to Pedro, well, you stay right here. Pedro did not come out and get involved with all of the other combatants, so to speak. And the umpires were in the middle of it and everything. And now it's working its way down first base, down the right field line. Well, anyway, I'm standing at my position, and I'm looking up at the crowd. And next thing I know, I see Pedro running toward me, and I can hear somebody yelling I can hear some, let me at him, you know, and it was him. And I just barely turned, and Pedro went by me. And that's when Zim was he had some momentum. Pedro barely touched him. But I think Zim was going to hit the ground anyway, because he was just running so fast and his momentum. You know, he's 70, I think 1 or 2 years old. And anyway, Pedro, almost like a bullfighter, just kind of stepped aside, and Zim landed like face first. He ended up getting a little cut on the bridge of his nose. And what had happened is, now I went over to him, and yes, I remember Andy Pettit, and I think it was Jeff Weaver at the time pitching for the Yankees. They came over, and Zim is screaming, "Let me up! Let me at him! I'll kill him! Let me at!" And I'm like patting him. You can see me patting him on the back. I'm like, "Take it easy, Zim. Stay down. Stay down. Take it easy." You know. And Pedro by this time had gotten out of there, and I just said to Pettit and Weaver, "Get him out of here before he gets hurt." You know. And so they did. And I think one of the Yankee trainers just walked them back into the dugout. And that pretty much, that part of it from there on, that was over. But now it's still going on down the right field line out by Kansas Alley. There were security and other police officers involved in it. Manny still got the bat. A guy I worked with ended up getting a hold of the bat, which I guess is a good thing. Nobody would get hit by a bat. You know, nobody would get hit. But Manny, really uncalled for. But that's how tension-filled it was. You know, it was just because the pitch wasn't anywhere near him. And I know both Pedro Martinez and Roger Clemens, and if either one of them wanted to hit you in the head, they could. Okay? It's that simple. If they were trying to hit you, they could hit you. So he was just trying to throw there's too much at stake to be putting guys on base as hits batsmen. You know, it's the playoffs. You know, it's not a Friday night game in April, you know. So, but I mean, that was my role in it. And just an aside, the next day I was doing the detail again. And we had to get there plenty early. So I went into the Yankees clubhouse to find Zim. And he was in the trainer's room, kind of getting a little bit of a rub down. You know, he was hurting from head to toe, you know, his muscles and everything. And he had just said, "Man, I really screwed up. I feel terrible about that. What an embarrassment." And then, if you remember, about 2 hours before the game, he held a press conference, and that basically admitting I screwed up and I'm embarrassed for the Yankees, for myself, for the game of baseball. I never should have got to that, and this and that. So, you know, but he thought Pedro was a bit of a headhunter, and Zimmer was kind of. What's the word I would look for? He got beaned when he was a rookie in 1952, playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Back then, he was what you called a bonus baby. It was on his baseball card that I had, and which meant it was like can't miss. In other words, he would have been a number 1 pick if they had a draft back then, but they didn't, not till 65. But he just was he ended up playing a 12-year career with a plate in his head. But he was never the same player again as after he got hit. You know, He missed a lot of time because of it. You know, it fractured his skull. You know,
do you ever look back? Do you ever look back on it and think that maybe like you could have got in the way of it before Pedro? Like, did you ever like just think back to the moment and be like, man, like
it just happened so fast because he got by me, and I was wondering like where was he going? And then just as I looked, because I had to look, I had to face away from the crowd. I had to look, and I could hear Zimmer yelling, "Let me at him!" You know, and the whole thing probably lasted 15 seconds, you know. But another thing from it, too, like I said, I was working down at District 4 at the time, and I got several calls from people up the commissioner's office that said they got telegrams and letters from people in New York thanking me for what I did, never believing that a Boston police officer would help a Yankee.
That's funny.
Me, it was just, with me, it was just, when a guy, he's old guy, if there were 2 20-year-old guys, I wouldn't have bothered. But Zim was an older guy, and he looked hurt. So my instincts kicked in, and I wanted to try and help him. and then just go back to doing what I was supposed to do. But I got to know Zim a little bit when he was here in 1992 with Butch Hobson as his bench coach, and he's a real nice guy. I was friendly with Joe Mooney, the groundskeeper, and Joe Mooney, Joe Torre, and Zim. If they had some downtime when the Yankees were in town, I'd see them over at Suffolk Downs. They loved horse racing, the three of them. In fact, there was a horse that ran out of New York, out of Belmont, probably about 12 or 13 years ago, called Torre and Zim. It was a pretty good horse. Yeah, it was named after him. It was a good horse. Yeah, so, but, Zim, like I said, hung in there for another X number of years with the Yankees. Then I think he had finally had it with the criticism, George Steinbrenner's criticism. So I think he just retired.
Yeah,
but never cashed a paycheck out of baseball his whole lifetime.
So this happened in 2003.
Yep.
Obviously, the Patriots won the Super Bowl in 2002. We all remember that cold day when they celebrated. But then they went on in 2004 to win it all. The Patriots won 2003, 2004. But, we've seen, I guess, other police officers kind of I don't want to say get famous, but they've had big moments, right? I mean, the Torrey Hunter, David Ortiz home run there.
That was Stephen Horgan, who retired a few years ago. That was in 2013, ALCS against the Tigers. Yeah, Stevie's a good guy, good man.
Yeah. So my question is, do you guys ever now, like, do you guys kind of rag on, like, oh, hey, I was that guy I was the guy that broke up Don Zimmer? Like, you were the first. Everyone else now with social media became famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, briefly after that, I wasn't assigned to that district anymore, but I talked to Steve about it, and I said, Jesus, 2 minutes of 30 seconds of fame, because that was a good moment. So that just kept being shown over and over and over. I mean, the last thing Major League Baseball wanted to see every night was a bench clearing brawl during the playoffs, with a cop in the middle of it, but yeah, Stevie Horgan, he did a great job. Stevie's a great guy, and he's retired now.
Yeah, but it is funny though. You'll notice now at these sporting events, if it's a moment and it can be go viral on social, it's big.
I know. I've done a lot of sporting events. Done a lot of sporting events in my career. 84 Celtics championship against the Lakers, Game 7. That was a thrill. And we were all working on a tour of duty, and they sent cops from every district into that thing. Yeah. And obviously the Celtics, beat the Lakers, and it was a great thing. Obviously the Patriots in Foxborough, so I've never done that. But all these victory parades, I've worked them all until I retired in 2017. And those were pretty much fun. The ones that could be the hairiest were after the Patriots would win, because it's in February now and the students are all back. And whereas before, when the Super Bowls were played in January, most of the students were on college break. Not that the Patriots were in any of those until the early 2000s. But if the Celtics and the Bruins, the city's not as crowded, for a victory parade or for what goes on that night. So, but there's been a couple of, like I said, the 2003, 2004 with the fans after losing and clinching into winning. And then the 4-game sweep with the Cardinals was that was another raucous night. Thank God these all happened on the road too.
Yeah, I know. Huh? Thank God.
There would have been another 40,000 people in Fenway. Not to mention the bars would have been packed in like sardines. They were pretty crowded, even though they were on the road. But if the games were in Fenway, you wouldn't have been able to move.
So I got one final question for you, and this involves your son Chris. So the Patriots make the playoffs, and they have a game on a Saturday, because they were the number 1 seed, but a snowstorm was coming through. And this is just after September 11th, and you got a hold of some tickets for the game.
Well, what happened is that, and
Tell us the story. Yeah,
that game was played in January of 2002. What had happened is after 9/11, a week got in the season. A week got canceled, and then they made it up. So that particular year, also, I think there was only 1 week in between the Super Bowl and the championship games because they had to play game number 16 when they might normally have been playing a playoff game. But Robert Kraft donated tickets to the Boston Police Department, and I was off that night, but I didn't want to go to the game. But Christopher, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, would you like to?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll love to go." I says, I think I can get a couple of tickets." So I drove into headquarters and I was able to get them. Then got home. I think I drove you to the commuter rail. So because I remember that's the way you guys went. You went in.
Yeah, I got mine there.
Yeah, you went in on the commuter rail, and we actually have the picture. I was able to get the picture of Vinatieri kicking and of Brady in the snow and the tuck rule and everything. And thank God for that tuck rule. Nobody had ever heard of the tuck rule.
Listen, we can tell you that night there was this moment of we didn't sit through all this crap to lose like this, and then it just kind of happened. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up, I have the ticket in hand.
You do?
Great. And I got it graded. You can grade tickets now just like you can grade baseball cards.
Yeah.
And this one's in spectacular condition, but they still grade them. And this one got graded at $1,500.
Wow.
Because you know why? Tom Brady's first playoff game.
Wow. Yeah.
And they take these in any condition. So I see yours, Chris, as well.
Mine's in way worse shape. Mine's waterlogged because it was in my pocket all night.
But it will still get a good grade, though. Yeah.
Hey, and how about Mr. Clutch, Adam Vinatieri? Him and Brady were two of the most clutch guys to ever play that game.
And I let them both walk.
But and they're both going to be in the Hall of Fame pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, I was happy for you. I was sitting home watching. I was glad they won. I told Christopher I saw you on TV, which I really didn't. But
but we are, technically speaking, we are in this photo.
Look at that.
That's where the football is.
As I tell everybody all the time, I'm like, yeah, me and Joe Murray are in the photo. Where? And I'm like, we're right behind this thing the network put on top of the crossbar because, like, Joe, they were the two worst seats in the house. Like the crossbar blocked our view the whole time.
It was funny because when they went to kick the game-winning field goal, I'm like, dude, we're definitely going to be on TV or in the photo because the ball literally was going where we were sitting.
It was right.
Like it was like net. If it was no net, it probably would have went over our head, but it was close enough.
Yeah.
But I just remember looking up and everybody, the snow came off the net once the ball went in and people just started throwing stuff in the air, snow everywhere. I
wanted to take the seat. It was the last game ever at Foxborough Stadium.
Yeah. Remember, they were checking people for screwdrivers so nobody could take it. They were like literally patting people down. And like, we didn't bring anything because it's bench seating. You weren't going to get away with much.
I'll admit this. I didn't have a drop of alcohol that night. It was so cold in the atmosphere. But yeah, I remember like people were getting drinks and some of them were frozen just because it was a cold night. Even though it was snowing, it was still really cold.
It reminded me when I was a kid watching Green Bay on TV in the playoffs in snowstorms. The Packers, the Bears. Back in the 60s, all four of the teams in that division played in outdoor stadiums. Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay, and Minnesota. And it was always snowing late in the season of those games. The Bears and the Lions weren't that good, but back in the 60s, and the Packers were good, the Vikings were good. So they were usually playing December and January football. But I can't even remember. I know the Patriots beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. I can't remember who they beat in the AFC Championship game. Was it the Steelers?
Yeah.
The Steelers had their parade already mapped out.
Oh, that might have been the one where Coward told everybody, all right, get your Super Bowl plans in
Yep.
order. Oh, yeah.
And
Talk
the bus got stopped.
bulletin board material.
Yep.
We
the
watched
bus.
that game in your mother's basement.
That's right. Actually,
When Bledsoe
game-
came in, you took your Bledsoe jersey off the wall and put it on. And he
threw a touchdown pass. That's right. Yeah.
They had the block punt that Antoine Harris pitched to Troy Brown to run it back for a touchdown. It's so funny because of where they are right now. to then they can't even score right now. Back then they were scoring on all phases of the game. Just one fun.
That Patriots season, I don't know if you remember, they went into the Jets game 3, 0-2.
Yep.
And when Bledsoe got hurt, it was the Jets linebacker. I want to say his name was Mo Green.
No, Mo
Green,
Lewis.
Mo Lewis.
Nobody tells Mo Green what to do.
Mo Lewis. That guy should have his name up in lights in Foxborough.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they probably would have still been going with Bledsoe, and we never would have had the ride we had for the last 20 years or so.
So speaking of a ride, Chris, you got to share the story of when your old man gave you the news that you were going to the Patriots game. What was the reaction and what happened once you got the news?
I remember. So I was at the house. My father called me, and I was at home with my mom, and my brother was probably at college. And I remember him saying, "I may have 4 tickets to tonight's game, but I definitely have 2. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I called you, and then I forget who else I called after that. I go, "Look, it's 50-50. I have 2 guaranteed. Joe's coming with me, and then I might get 2 more." So I was kind of putting the feelers out. People were definitely interested, but he only ended up getting 2.
Yeah.
And, like we said, what that started, the roller coaster ride for 20 years here, what that started, because I'm trying to think back, like in 76 when Fisk hit the home run. I mean, that was in Good Will Hunting. Remember, that was like big moment, but they didn't win the World Series.
They didn't win. Yeah.
And this probably would have been the same if they lost the Super Bowl or if they didn't beat the Steelers the following week in the AFC Championship, and it wouldn't have meant as much. So, everybody's got that one game they were at, whether it was game 7 in 84 for the Celtics or when Orr scored the game-winning goal in either 70 or 72. So this was ours. And as luck had it, it just turned out to be probably the most important playoff game in the history of the Patriots.
Yeah. All right. So you're bearing the lead, though. You were excited driving home, and what happened?
Oh, what happened?
Did you get pulled over?
Did we get? I was with you, I thought.
I don't know what happened. I thought you were in excitement and got pulled over. You're like, dude, I just found out I got tickets to the game.
Dude, I honestly, if my wife was here right now,
it's probably urban right now, Chris. It's probably urban legend that we believed back then, right?
Yeah, you know what? But I do remember, and I want to say either we took the train and you picked me up. You had the stinking.
I had the stinking Lincoln at the time. I drove home,
and we like I said, we didn't even drink. We just went to the game, and it was snowing out, and it was and like even though like we were at the crossbar, like I remember the snow kept piling up, so it was like 3 or 4 inches of snow on the crossbar. So ultimately, you just couldn't see anything. You had to go on crowd reaction.
It was,
and when he fumbled the ball, everybody was walking out. And then when the ref reversed the call, the place went nuts. And you saw people all over filing. They just essentially turned around, did a 180, and walked back to their seats. But we were row 8. I had 14. You must have been 15, and there were 30 row seats. So we were right in the middle. We couldn't see much, but we got to say we were there, and so. Every time Joe tells the story, I'm the guy he went with, and my dad's how we got the ticket. So that's the final piece of the puzzle.
Mr. Kraft, he's a great man. He's a great guy. He's one of the best owners in all of sports, Robert Kraft.
Well, it's we're on the anniversary of Don Zimmer, which now we know the story, the real story. From Officer.
Like I said, it was a tense time, and another thing too. You'd be surprised when you're in the dugout. You can hear other stuff from the other dugout.
Yeah.
That the people in the stands probably can't hear.
Yeah.
There was some chirping back and forth, probably the whole series starting in game 1. But it was just a real tense time. And like I said, in 2002, Larry Lucchino called the Yankees the evil empire.
Yep.
That didn't sit well with anyone in New York, including the players, including the players. But just a side note, real quick, the best guy I ever met in my life was Derek Jeter. Fantastic young man. He really is. What a great guy. Derek Jeter,
Yep.
a Yankee, yeah.
Better
There were
than
a lot of
Nomar.
great guys in the game, but Derek Jeter was a real class act.
Better than Nomar, but no one around here will admit that. So
Oh, yeah, he just, and I don't know. He just,
he was
God,
class.
he was just so cool. Everything was, yeah, he was, and his mother named him after Derek Sanderson,
Wow. All right, there we go.
That's Google that. His
Yeah.
mother was from Boston. She loved Derek Sanderson. She named him Derek after Derek Sanderson.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate the time. We got to catch up on Don Zimmer. We got to catch up on the Patriots story of the snow game and the ticket. I'm a big collector now, so I have concert tickets. Like if you have some big event, you can get them graded now. And I kept this one because it's probably my best sports memory.